Hello and welcome to Witchy and Well's Soul Medicine. I'm your host, Emily Blaisdell, pharmacist, witch, and holistic health coach. And on this show, we are going to talk about some amazing alternative and holistic healing practices and the people who have found their own medicine in this space. Today, we are so grateful to be joined by Allie Blaisdell, hypnotherapist of Pure Transcendence Healing. Welcome, Allie.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy you're here. So I like to start this show by asking about positive risks that you've taken. It's something I'm trying to do myself, and I know so many of us take these little risks that may go unnoticed, but they're really helping to move us forward. Do you feel like you've taken a little risk recently, a positive risk to grow?
Yes. I feel like this moment right now is a big, giant risk for me because as an intuitive and also an introverted entrepreneur, I tend to be in my little bubble with my one-on-one clients. And so, again, thank you for this opportunity because I'm so happy to take this risk and be able to share the work that I do with others in this capacity.
I'm so glad that you're willing to take this risk too, because I have had just some of the most incredible conversations with you, and I want for everybody to know how amazing it is.
I'm coming out of the closet.
The spiritual broom closet.
Spiritual broom closet, yes.
Absolutely. Well, so all that said, I would love to hear more about the work that you're doing. I know you have kind of a broad spectrum of work. What is it that you like to do?
Yeah. So my main specialty is hypnotherapy. And I range from clinical hypnotherapy, which includes weight loss work, smoking cessation, stress reduction, anxiety support, all the way to really woo-woo experiences with regression hypnosis, specifically past life regression work. I also utilize Reiki energy healing in my practice and spiritual guidance to support and coach others who are on their spiritual path or just embarking on their spiritual awakening. I like to kind of say that my work ranges kind of in levels. So like depending on wherever you are, I meet exactly where that is.
I love that. And for someone who's maybe curious about what those different types of hypnotherapy and spiritual coaching would look like, what would you say, for example, like a regression hypnosis would look like? Someone? And why might someone really benefit from that particular type of therapy, hypnotherapy?
Yes. So regression hypnotherapy, regression, the word itself means to go back in time. So when we do regression work, it's a deeper format of hypnosis. So there's many different layers of the hypnotherapy state. Hypnosis is really just a brainwave state. It's nothing more or less. It's a tool that we use to enter into that receptive brainwave state, which in a spiritual capacity opens us up to our higher consciousness. So with regression work, we're really reaching to that higher level of consciousness to tune into memories from other lifetimes. We can also use this capacity to work on age regression, which supports experiences in this lifetime. So let's say there was experiences in childhood that we want to work on, connecting to the inner child. Those are all aspects of that regression hypnosis.
And do you feel like there are parallels between the regression work and the work that you described as being more clinical, folks who are looking to lose weight or quit smoking?
Yes. So when we're looking at our subconscious habits and our subconscious stories and conditioning, there's always a deeper rooted piece. So with weight loss, the weight loss is the top layer of the issue, and there's more things that are underneath the surface in that subconscious layer. So whether it is regression therapy, because maybe there's pieces of that conditioning that started in childhood. So maybe if we go back to that inner child space, we can start to reframe or see what that child needs. Because for me personally, I used regression hypnosis and weight loss work together because I was bullied as a child. And so that bullying experience heavily conditioned me to realize that I wasn't good enough and that I was this or that. And so I did go back to and use those techniques on myself because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So there's most definitely parallels to both of those works. It's just different intentions or different kind of ways of looking at things. I really like the regression work because it goes to those deeper levels, but sometimes people aren't super ready to go back into their experiences of the past. So the clinical hypnosis gives someone that wants to begin their work with subconscious reprogramming a really beautiful tool because of those conditions or those experiences have shaped the way they see themselves. So with clinical hypnosis, there's utilizing the hypnotic state, which is the receptive space, to support that client with healthy suggestions. So, feeling a desirable motivation to eat better, sleep better, motivation to work out, different things can be sort of planted in that hypnotic state so that they have that experience of when they wake up in the morning, they feel just a little slight like, oh, wow, I actually feel a little bit more refreshed to do the thing I want to do. And that sort of devil angel on the shoulder, that flip experience of, we have that good intentional thought, but we lean into the one that feels most comfortable, which maybe is sitting on the couch instead of taking a walk. We can flip-flop those stories so that that person feels more motivated.
So interesting. I wanted to ask you your opinion too. So I don't know if you've ever seen the comedy of Nick Kroll. He's very funny, but he has this special where he plays a recording of a hypnotherapy session that he had sought out to help him overcome his craving for snack foods. He was big into snack foods. And he plays the recording during his comedy set. And it's an interesting take on it. It's the hypnotherapist is kind of making all of these sort of negative associations with snacks for him, and so it's like comparing pretzels to like sleeper cells, and I don't know, just like wild interesting things. And I wonder, is it important to have a balance of creating negative associations with undesirable behaviors, or is it do you focus more on creating positive associations with the positive behaviors? What does that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Because hypnosis is, the roots in hypnosis go really far back. Yeah. So there's been many different ways of doing hypnosis over the years. More so that clinical approach of the negative association. A lot of people do that with smoking and the weight loss piece and things like that. And so that type of hypnosis is taking the idea that the brain has a pleasure center and a pain center. Right. And so when you use that negative association, you're allowing the brain to see it as a negative pain experience rather than pleasurable. So for people that do smoke, they do like the smell of smoke because it brings up that they just enjoy it. Yeah. And so if you use that negative approach to saying that, that the smoke of the cigarette is repulsive or what have you, it acts on that pleasure pain receptor. I found that when I do work with people, I like more of the positive association just because I want to boost them. I do believe in that pain pleasure center approach, but I think that more and more I'm using less and less of that and more of, having them see the reasons really why they should choose healthier habits and those positive associations of what they can look forward to in the future when they, have lost the weight that they want to lose, right? So that future association, we can use the hypnotic state to feel how we want to feel when we've lost those amount of pounds that we want to lose. Yeah. So that approach is really strengthening the ego state and strengthening that motivation and capacity for that person that they can make the changes that they want for themselves.
Interesting. I once heard another hypnotherapist refer to his work as sort of an unprogramming or a deprogramming. What does that feel like for you?
Yeah. So I think the biggest kind of metaphor that people use for that clinical approach of hypnosis is that our subconscious mind is like a giant computer and we've got all these little files that are activated. And if anyone's like me on my desktop, right, there's so many things and it's just busy and the tabs on my I have maybe a little bit of ADHD, but the tabs on my internet are all, open and everything. So it's like we're all activated with and walking around with all of this noise and all of these open files. And maybe they're files from a long, long time ago that we're still kind of replaying. And so the deprogramming part of that is like clicking the X on all those files, right? We don't need them all running. They're not really serving a purpose anymore. And so
there's such energy that goes into running those programs too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if we can, X out those boxes, when people leave my sessions, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so light. Well, it's because we close all the tabs.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a fascinating take. What drew you to this work, Allie?
Try to keep the story short. So I was introduced to the spiritual nature of things at an early age, not as early as some people, because I grew up with an atheist father. And so my parents I didn't have any introduction into church or religion or anything. My dad was super atheist, so it was just like it didn't exist. When I was young, or probably 8 years old, I think, maybe a little bit older, my dad had gotten into an accident and he got a concussion, and he's okay now. But it was enough for him to wake up. And so he became very psychic. A lot of mediumship capabilities, a lot of seeing spirit, a lot of that experience moved us into a different town, into a whole new home that was very old and has a lot of spirit energy. And so having him flip-flop completely, because he started seeing these gifts within himself, which is very common for a lot of mediums, especially Edgar Casey is one of them who's had an accident. I think John Holland, who's a local medium, also had an accident and awakened him to the spirit world. So I grew up then with my dad talking crazy things, right? I thought he was crazy. I thought, gosh, I don't even know what he's talking about, because I didn't know about spirit, right? You just watch movies, and of course I watched horror movies when I was little, so I was fearful, right? Very fearful. And he psychically told me, when you're 14, you're gonna feel the way that I do. And I was like, Dad, what are you talking about? Right? And so I did. And so I got curious, and he had started to see a shamanic practitioner in Boxford, Mass. Her name's Cynthia Powers Barnard. And he started to go to her, and she was using shamanic techniques and meditation and Reiki and flower essences and all of the whole gambit, and to help him hone in on his gifts. So he had driven me and I waited in the car while he was in the session with her, and it's like, what are we doing here? We're at this lady's house, and right, she's really witchy, and like, I didn't go in, so I didn't know exactly what happened, but he came out and he felt lighter. And so I started getting really curious, right? When you're young, you get curious, you know, different things happen. And that was kind of around the same time where I was starting to get bullied too. So, I was like, well, he feels lighter. Like I just intuitively felt like it was helping him. And I didn't know with what or anything like that, but then, so I started to see her too. And she's still my mentor to today. And she introduced me to energy. She introduced me to crystals. She introduced me into past life regression work, although the shamanic work in past life regression is a little bit different. And so that kickstarted a whole thing, but I kept it in the spiritual broom closet. I didn't want my peers to know what I was doing. I didn't want anyone to know I sat in silence and meditated. I was a very quiet person anyway, so the quiet intimidated people and things like that. And I think that was part of why I got bullied a little bit. But today I still own that part of me. So then I started to, practice and do different things, but my life was going into a complete other direction, and I was using these tools to support me. But career-wise, I went to school, my undergrad's in fashion merchandising, and so I took that route, and I got multiple, internships and jobs and different things in the fashion industry, all the way up until my most recent corporate job in a local company called Garnet Hill in Exeter, New Hampshire. And then COVID happened and I got laid off. And at that time, though, I was going back to school for transpersonal psychology, which brought me into the hypnotic work. Yeah. And so then I just dove in. And here we are.
Yeah. And so, I mean, in this space, there are so many options for healing, right? There is shamanic work. There is, working with energy like flower essences. What was it that really drew you to hypnotherapy?
Yeah. So specifically the regression work, I'm going to always go back to that because that's the most fascinating experience. So what it really showed me is that we have all the answers.
Oh, yes.
I just got goosebumps.
It felt like a release in my chest when you said that. Yeah.
We have all the answers. And once we get out of our conscious thinking mind, the one that's analyzing, trying to logistically figure things out, trying to, piece things together in a thinking way, you reach that subconscious or, soul layer. And that soul part of you knows where you're going, knows what your strengths are, knows what your values are, knows what you deeply desire, knows what your potential and your path is. Yeah. And so when I started to do that work, I realized, having to practice on others, but also having my own experiences, it's like, wow, the moment we let go, the wisdom is right there. And it doesn't take long. Yeah. With regression work, maybe we do 30 minutes of relaxation processes. You don't even need to do that much. And especially when you practice this work over time, you can drop in, right? And many people look at it as different things. I think, we have people that believe in spirit guides, you have people that believe in angels and our higher self and all of these. And my belief is that they're all aspects of the same thing.
Do you have a word that you would use to define that same thing?
Yeah, I think, it's a higher consciousness. A lot of people maybe say source, right? But it seems to be like when you tap into that space, and it's my training is more so on the Edgar Cayce side. When Edgar Cayce is a medium, he was popular back in the 1940s, and he coined the Akashic record work.
Interesting.
And so that belief of like you get to that space and there's every information from the past, the present, the future, all possibilities. That's where hypnosis really can take us.
Yeah. And I'll say, when I met Allie, it was at a wellness expo, a holistic health fair, and you led us in an inner child meditation. And I remember it was a profound experience for me. You took me back to when I was about 9 years old, and there were a couple of things that happened. You guided me to receiving a gift from my inner child and to giving a gift to my inner child. And it was this powerful connection that I felt to like, not just my inner child, but to all of my multitudes. Like the many versions there are of me all within one. I didn't maybe get as deep as like feeling that connection with all, but it was certainly powerful for connecting with me. Yeah. And I think for folks who are looking to reclaim parts of themselves, it is so beautiful.
Yes, it is. It is incredible to tap into those parts of us. And so, this is one popular technique that's very like a buzzword now in the therapy world is IFS, so internal family system. So that technique is very similar to regression hypnosis, where we both work on parts. So when we're doing the inner child work, that's a part of us.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And so through every experience we have, it creates a part. Yeah. And these parts take different roles. And so some are protective parts, some are really vulnerable parts, some are angry parts, some are shameful parts. And so when we start to identify with these parts and tune into what they really need, because they're serving a purpose. Yeah. They all have a job.
Yeah.
It's to protect ourselves, right? I mean, yes, there's the protector, but they're all serving to keep us in our experience. And so when we tune into these parts, we can communicate with them. We can play with the imagination, which is partly where hypnosis takes us also. And the imagination is a very powerful place, right? Absolutely. I always say to clients, when we're having anxiety or depression and any of these things, we're using the imagination to create experiences that haven't happened yet, or ruminating on experiences that have. So we're in that imaginatory state all the time. But what if we could really utilize it and interact with it? And so that's where I work with clients in that space in regression hypnosis. We interact with those parts, right? Just like you had that experience with your inner child, we're receiving, communicating, experiencing those needs. And when you start to do that, it's like, oh, I'm kind of building this relationship with myself.
I'm like becoming more whole.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about that sort of interaction. I wonder, I've become curious about shamanic work recently. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but like, what do you see as sort of the differences, the similarities between your regression work and what might be like a soul retrieval?
Yeah, very, very similar approaches, just different intention in terms of like the belief system. And, maybe there's spirit animal work there, right? And moving through the different layers and levels of the lower earth, the upper earth, different things. When I do the regression work, we kind of take the same approach. Maybe we, kind of move up to the higher realms of the spirit world. And, a lot of people, maybe I like to play with like a cloud imagery and that leads us to kind of being in that higher space. Or maybe we take a more grounded approach and work with nature and things like that. And so you're using that guided imagery, visualization work to help open us up to those parts of us.
Yeah. What is happening, and it's totally fine if you don't know, but what is kind of happening in the mind when say we're thinking about kind of those higher realms or kind of the more kind of nature-based realms? Have we been able to kind of quantify at a level like alpha brainwave, theta brainwave? Like, do we know what's happening in the mind when we're accessing that?
Yeah. So if anyone follows Joe Dispenza's work, he's probably the guy that has he is the guy that has taken the sort of scientific approach to doing the best we can with study the brain. So at his events, he'll put things on people's brains and to measure the brainwave levels. And so it does seem like when we reach a deeper state of meditation or hypnosis, that we're reaching, I think he said, all the way up to like gamma brainwave. So this in hypnosis in the hypnotic world is known as the superconscious level. So we've got subconscious and then we've got superconscious, which is kind of where the Akashic records places. I think it's all frequency, right? So we're taking ourselves into that higher frequency. And there's more studies being done in terms of where this work can take us, because as we're in this kind of experience now where science and spirituality are starting to blend. Oh yeah, right.
It's delicious.
Healthcare and right, these places are starting to blend, and we're seeing more of a need for that spiritual experience, because I think we're in a spiritual crisis, and I think we've lost that touch with our open-heartedness and our ability to connect to something. I think we're all looking for connection, and so more and more of the spiritual work, I think, is really going to help not only individually, but humanity start to move towards where we want it to go.
Absolutely. That said, who do you feel are the clients that should come see you? Who do you want to work with? Who do you feel will benefit from working with you?
Yeah. So I really...
Probably everyone is the answer.
Yes,
but
everyone
is the answer.
Because of the work in hypnosis, it's so versatile. And so, we've talked about a few different ways that hypnosis may help someone. And so I really love when people are willing to take a chance on themselves to do something for themselves. So even I always tell clients, even the fact that you've walked through the threshold of my office is so incredibly powerful, because this is like the moment that you plant your seed for that growth, and it's just showing up and taking a chance on yourself, taking a little risk. Right?
Yeah.
And as crazy as it might sound to go see a hypnotist, we're out here, and this work has been very twisted in a way that, people think hypnotherapy is something like mind control, or you're going to lose control of yourself, or you're going to do something you don't want to. It's just like guided meditation with a more activated approach to really getting to the root of what's kind of showing up for you in the now.
Exactly. With a compassionate person who's willing to hold space for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, Allie, if someone were curious and wanted to come find you, how would they do that?
Yeah. So I have a physical office in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire, right on Route 1. I also see clients virtually. So I use Zoom to work with people all over the country and world. And my website is puretranscendencehealing.com. And my Instagram handle is also at puretranscendencehealing.
Thank you. Amazing. And so I think the last time we spoke, you were talking about another kind of new offering you were developing, something that you were excited to be learning. Will you share with us a little bit about what that is and how it's going?
Yes. Again, goosebumps. So I just started to introduce transformational breath work into my practice. This tool and modality is, it was created by a woman named Judith Kravitz in the 1970s. She's still teaching today, and I had the pleasure of having direct teaching and training with her. And so it's a conscious connected breath experience where it's a hands-on experience. So with the conscious connected breath, which is this full cycle breathing in and out of the mouth without pause, you're able to reach those deeper rooted subconscious programs without even having to talk about it, without even having to, spend all of that time, reliving it and retalking and rehashing it. You get directly to the source of that energy, and you're letting it go through the breath. And so the breath work paired with physical touch from the practitioner, we touch different acupressure points in the body that helps move where that energy is stuck in the tissues, to send the breath to those areas so that we're really activating the movement of the issue in the tissue.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
so it'll be so powerful for so many folks. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And Allie, thank you so much for being here today. I sincerely hope that people are, come flocking to you, because I just think you are incredible. And I'm so grateful for you being here and chatting with me. And I can't wait to chat again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.